I was asked to present something on bipolar disorder for you guys, so I could do that. So, kind of titled this slide presentation to be about the cycle, because I think that's really important, cycle. And disclosures, I work here. That's about it. All right. It's easy. Instead, I would just start with a couple cases to, just very basic kind of things and leave you with a couple key points that I'd like to have you guys keep in mind. So case one is a 7-year-old male with history of depression and anxiety. He came over to me. He was brand new from somewhere else. And he gets depressed 3 days at a time. And he's on Prozac 20 milligrams. That was started 2 months ago. He said well for 3 weeks, and then it's kind of nah, not working. He said some suicidal ideation, no plans or intent, but he, has a method in mind, saying he could use his dad's shotgun and off. But I talked to Dad, and Dad says there's no ammo, but he does have a shotgun. And, he's sleeping well. The other thing is that, he comes from a very well-off family, and, his grandmother would give him me. And he spent $1,000 on trial, shoes or something. And, oh, really? I'm serious. And, yeah, and matching belts, I think, too. He's trying to pay that off. So, but otherwise, he seems very healthy. And so, he was under some stressors. And so, socially, Mom and Dad are not doing well together. They divorced 10 years ago, and they're bitter, kind of litigious kind of thing going. Mom is in the middle of suing him for custody. But initially, he was lived with Mom 6 years ago, and then something about DHHS coming and taking him out because of the filth in the home. So I have no idea at this point. And, he uses marijuana daily. He says it helps him relax and decreases anxiety. And he said to Dad, who works in the marijuana business, I guess he grows his own, and he has his own marijuana card or whatever, and provides him marijuana every night. And so, what they told me initially was Dad's mom, a paternal grandmother, was diagnosed with depression and ADHD, and she's on Strattera and Vyvanse together, and she's on Wellbutrin and Celexa. Mom was labeled as narcissistic and have dissociative disorder, anxiety, depression, alcoholism, and opiates, and that was from Dad and the patient. Dad's sister has a history of taking some kind of SSRI, but unknown, diagnosis, and no family history of suicides. And so I was able to get some collateral information, family history from both the paternal grandmother, and I also got it from Mom too, and it's different. But the family history from the paternal grandmother, the patient's Dad's mom, she was actually psychiatrically hospitalized for 10 days for a manic episode. That's what she called it, but she was never diagnosed with bipolar. And Dad was also hospitalized for 2 weeks when he was in his 20s for episode 2 by her mom's statement, but Dad denies any bipolar diagnosis. And so he became very, very adamant and kind of angry about it, irritable. And so initially, we started him, or we increased his fluoxetine dose because he was at 20. We decided to increase it to 40. And his depression, the patient's depression, resolved, after a month or two. And what he said was that he was feeling more energy, like he was feeling, energetic. So by this time, I got the family history, or other family history, and the psychiatric hospitalizations were also corroborated by the mom, too. Dad was hospitalized, and he was actually really wonky. So we decided just to stop the fluoxetine and a little risperidol, but he didn't tolerate it. And so when he came back, he was like really, really speedy. And so he was like talking real fast, pressure speech. And so we decided, well, let's stop the risperidol because he's not going to take it. He didn't want it. Tried a little Abilify, and that seemed to help. And so he was better for a while, and we decided to maybe trial something on the light side because he didn't really believe he had bipolar or anything. And I wasn't really too sure either. Because one thing about Prozac is that it has a long half-life, and if medication-induced manic episode, what we're looking for to actually have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder would be that the symptoms should remain, he should be manic even after like a month, which is approximately how long it takes for fluoxetine to get out of the system. So it was kind of hard to tell because we started the mood stabilizers immediately. So I didn't want to wait the month because he was already kind of going a little dangerous-wise. And plus he had a lot of money, and he was doing a lot of, risky kind of things. And I thought, let's intervene now. And so eventually he was well for like a few months and then came back, said he stopped everything, doesn't believe in any of the meds, and then he started getting very OCD. He'll complain about OCD symptoms. He'll complain about lots of anxiety. And he continued to use marijuana, even though, I'm telling him that marijuana actually can, be very bad for you, especially with a bipolar kind of history. And he felt, or Dad felt, that he had ADHD, and so he decided that he had ADHD, and so I did the whole ADHD thing with him and said no, and so he kind of left. So that's that story. But I did get some other information, which is kind of interesting, that I did get a call from New York Presbyterian Hospital, who actually was admitted to the psychiatric unit as a VIP, and he was also seen by like all the big ADHD docs around, like Harvard and stuff. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, today, bipolar disorder starts, in late adolescence, early adulthood. But that's general. Psychosocial stressors can be a trigger. I think it really depends on, it's not just about coping, but maybe pretty significant, but maybe not sometimes. But another component, dad, bipolar disorder, and cannabis abuse is also something that has been found to kind of induce an early onset of bipolar disorder. And there's the sources there, but and I think it's interesting because there's a lot of cannabis now being used by younger kids who feel like it's not stigmatized and legal, although it's not for them. But anyway, so that was one case. Second case I have is not really my patient, but one of my kid's mom. So I don't really have the full history. I think she's very, very good. She's a 38-year-old female, history of depression and anorexia. And she was presenting with depression and anger. She was trialed on Wellbutrin, but she would become very angry and agitated, so they took her off of that. But she had a lot of psychosocial stressors. She miscarried, which led to a hysterectomy like a year and a half ago. Grandfather passed away. She was complaining of like having no support from her family members. Started on fluoxetine, titrated at 40, and she became very irritable. So, I got a lot of information from the husband and from the kid. But, Dad was, or her husband, was really affected her, but he did that. She tends to kind of, emotion turn on a dime, right? So not so much diagnostic for bipolar, but it was interesting that he said that. And then he said that when things are good, they are just really good, but when things are bad, she would leave the family for like 3 months at a time. She would get her own apartment or live in with her ex-boyfriend from like high school, and they would have like an affair for at least 3 months, something longer. And what Dad was saying, or her husband would say, was that she was able to work and function, and she was doing all right. She'll withdraw. She was very, very cranky. She started drinking lots of alcohol and smoking lots of cigarettes, and would only face kids once a week. So, and there are 3 kids in the family, and so she just completely left, and then she'd come back. And the last episode was about 4 months ago, and so the husband is kind of really emotionally recovering from this. And at that first one, he became kind of psychotic, and she felt like her husband was kind of stealing money from her, and so she got into the bank account and transferred like $10,000 into her account. And, it was just crazy stuff. But she eventually turned around and came back, but she was still kind of irritable. So she's had multiple episodes her lifetime, and she would be very remorseful, and things would be really good then for not just a few months, but longer. But a lot of the episodes, they're like 3 months at a time. And he would call them, I forgot what he called them, her spells. And so family history, and her mother had similar symptoms, similar presentation, but now it's a little bit better. And she married like 5 times and very dysregulated. And so there's a question of, what actually happened, when this patient was younger, maybe. And then on Dad's side, the paternal grandmother, her paternal grandmother, was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder, similar presentation as the patient. So takeaway from that would be, it's always nice, it's always good, and you need to get collateral family history. I think family history is really key. And bipolar disorder has a lot of lookalikes. Going from like borderline personality disorder, which she also fits. I mean, she can be there. But the thing about bipolar and a lot of other things is that bipolar be in cycles. I mean, they have to be discrete cycles. And a lot of the cycles, I mean, generally, 13 weeks on average duration. It could be longer, much longer. It could be much less. And the DS5 states that, for bipolar 1, you just need more than a week of manic kind of symptoms. And then, ADHD can look like bipolar disorder, organic causes, blah, blah, blah. Depression, trauma. So there's a question of trauma, too. And so this case, number 3, is a 42-year-old male who was treated for depression, and he was treated with lamictal citalopram for years, and was doing very well. And then, he presents with, actually to the main med ED, racing thoughts. He was just talking very fast, flight of ideas, lots of paranoia. He felt like people were, trying to get him. He thought he was, Jesus was talking to him. And he was really kind of dangerous and spending a lot of money. And so he was sent to Spring Harbor, and he was discharged on Risperdal, 2 milligrams, so he stabilized him there. And, first episode, it sounds like, because he's never been diagnosed prior, at 42. But, I mean, the takeaway for this is that although generally bipolar disorder, starts at, adolescents, young adults, but it could kind of meander. I mean, it can start there and nobody can notice or nobody can really tell. because this individual actually had some hypomania prior. Like he said that he was on a mountain climbing trip years ago, and one night they had to climb through or something, and he wasn't really sleeping well through the mountain climbing. And so then he got very energized for a while, and he was able to complete the whole trip, and he was feeling great. So bipolar disorder, and generally, there's different types. You could have the mania mixed, which is mania and depressive symptoms at the same time, hypomanic and depressed, and generally the symptoms should be iterations of normal. You know, just people can be sad, people can be happy, but this is more so. Okay? Even hypomania is more so than normal, right? And a lot of times, you know, depressive state is very common, and lifetime prevalence is 3 to 5%. But that's including everything in bipolar, with like cyclothymia too, is also in the family. And so this is kind of just a little drawing chart, cartoon. You know, normal mood, you know, this is euthymia, you know, ups and downs. Depression is, you know, you're dipping down low for a while. Mania is when you like, and then you have this hypo is not as high. And the difference between mania and hypomania would be that mania is actually realizable, that you are severely, really in danger of hurting yourself, hurting others, can't defend yourself. Whereas hypomania, a lot of people don't know, well, we are hypomanic, and so they can go through their lives and be okay. But a lot of times, too, which is with hypomania, a lot more depressive symptoms, so a lot more risk involved with that because of the suicidal kind of component of bipolar disorder, which I will get to later. And then you have this mixed component where it's, yeah, you're both. You're just cranky and energy, and so you're scary. So we treat, we kind of want to put them somewhere in the middle. And treatment would be just decreasing both the highs and the lows and compressing them so they're a bit more stable. We use like mood stabilizers for that, lithium, Depakote, Tegretol, things like that. And so one thing about bipolar disorder is that a lot of times, you know, the diagnosis itself is delayed by, you know, 10 years and like 35% patients, but I also have a slide that, I mean, at least 8 years before they're actually, you know, diagnosed. And 20% of untreated are, you know, they kill themselves. And so they're at risk of bipolar in bipolar 2. And in bipolar 2, generally, it's more females than males, although as a whole, males and females are equal. Or type 1, males and females are equal. Bipolar females are more than males. And let's see. And yeah, well, there's a low proportion of patients in treatment. You know, the treatment works relatively well. Has its own side effects and stuff, but I guess needs to be seen. And so, you know, lifetime prevalence, you know, bipolar 1 is about 1 to 2%. Bipolar 2 is about the same. The whole spectrum, and that includes bipolar 1, bipolar 2, cyclothymia, hypomania, anything secondary to like meds, drugs, antidepressants. And then the first episode generally is depressive. Doesn't have to be. It can be manic. And so epidemiologically, too, males equal to females. Onset in teens for most patients. Onset is rare, but, you know, had this VA study of like, I guess it was like 65,000 old dudes, years and older. And it was like 6% of them, or was it 65, or was it 16,000? It's a big number. And 6% of them actually present with late onset bipolar disorder. And relapse is very frequent. A lot of times they feel really good and they get off the meds and So factors that contribute to bipolar disorder: genetic. Just a first-degree relative with bipolar disorder increases your risk from that 1 to 2% to like 8. Also seen 20% in that primary first-degree relative range. And so, but when you look at twin studies, like 80%, that's huge. And the 14. And so they're thinking that it's multiple little genes or genes of small effect. But biochemical issues, norepi, serotonin, dopamine, social. Like I stated earlier, that stressful events can trigger these, but yeah, I mean, you need to differentiate that from, cope. Are they able to cope? Were they able to cope before? Are these coming in cycle kind of things? It's kind of tough, but just And bipolar disorder, they are likely to get fired. They don't really do well. They are arrested, get convicted, jailed. It really does affect not just the patient, but family and anxiety. Let's see, cost was 45 to 60 billion a year, and that's something that I found. And the risk of suicide is really much greater, 29%. And so it's kind of scary, but 25 to 50% of bipolar patients in 19 will actually complete it. And prior attempts are often indicator of completed. And it is misdiagnosed, but that's not a bad thing because we treat what we see, and a lot of times it is depression, and so initially diagnosed as depression, 40 to 70% of the time, and then they can see several clinicians and to be mistaken, but and it's 10 years, and a lot of times bipolar is not just by itself. I mean, they can come in with lots of anxiety and lots of other kind of comorbid things. It makes it more murkier. So, just I would, if you suspect there's like some mania or mania, I mean, a lot of patients will not report any of that, and so it's good to get the family involved a little bit, get a little history. If when patients are presenting with like depression, ask them about family history for bipolar disorder, or whether they've had any manic or kind of elated, overly energized episodes. Just family history of bipolar disorder, and using a tool such as the mood disorder questionnaire. You would, and then I would really ask about sleep. Because sleep is important for bipolar disorder. Because that's stressor that can kind of induce a manic episode. And so this is a mood disorder questionnaire. It's kind of blurry, but it's kind of on the short side. Actually, this one has questions on the bottom that you don't really need to ask. The actual mood disorder questionnaire has only questions, but one of the questions has multiple subsets in there. And it's fast. It's a self-report. It is not very sensitive, but it is really specific. So if they are positive this, then yeah, it's a good indicator. And this is from the general population when you're just asking around, and then this is from editor's office, just with a depressed patient. But the other thing is that not very sensitive for bipolar 2 or unspecified bipolar disorder. So another thing about bipolar disorder is that, again, cycles. I think it needs to be, you need to see cycles. Cycles are important. So the diagnosis, bipolar disorder by history, I think really needs to be kind of looked into a little more when you see it. Actually, between 1997 to 2010, there's a guy at Harvard, dude, Biederman. He did a lot of things with ADHD, I think that was it. But also did a lot of things with bipolar disorder. And so, yeah, this is kind of the age where there's this huge upsurge of like fad of bipolar disorder. Everyone has bipolar. He had these 5 to 9-year-olds. I think that's 10 to 14, 15 to 17.
To use ADHD screening tools.
Yeah.
It's not even expanded.
He felt like there was, I guess, like a spectrum or something with it, and so, yeah, and so a lot of people, well, I think ADHD has been diagnosed now, but that's a different talk. But yeah, I think, especially during this time where kids are now going to be in, the practices that kids have now. About 20 years ago. And so they're adults and they're going to be coming in. I have bipolar disorder. They may be on like a bunch of different meds that may not be very good for them. And so you kind of have to just reconsider the diagnosis, see what's going on, or send them back to a psychiatrist. And that's the big thing. Send them to a psychiatrist if they're positive. I think that's really important. DSM-5. And so because of what happened in 97 to 2010, the DSM people kind of decided to make up a new diagnosis, DMDD, which is there's disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. Disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. And it describes kids who are constantly, continuously irritable. They're cranky. And but they have these bouts where they're just really responding in a very angry, destructive way for very little things. And a lot of times that was really being diagnosed as bipolar when was like not. And so just aware. I think that maybe it. Do I have another? Oh, yeah, okay. So just a look at mood disorders and I this picture because it kind of shows, like, graphically, with the graphics, what's going on, like dysthymia, you're below the kind of the normal area, but you're always there like you're. Number one, you kind of go really high and then low, but you could go low and really high. There's bipolar too, where they're in depression or dysthymia for a lot of the time, and then they'll have these bouts of like hypomania. And again, they're like discrete periods. They're cycles. So, except for the cyclothymia, which is just all over the place. Okay, so cyclothymia you don't really meet for hypomania or for depression, because when you do that, then you move up to the bipolar kind of diagnoses, or NOS, which is specified now. So I would take home points. Look to ask for it. Mania is really easy to see because they're very or they can be, and depression is a little more difficult. And so, it's a family history. I would really ask those questions. Try to see if you can download the mood disorder questionnaire. And mood swings are not bipolar disorder. That's something else. Bipolar disorder, again, is in cycles. And the cycles are not, this is the thing, is that cycles are not, when they say rapid cycling, we're talking like, 4 times a year. We're not saying like within a day or within a week or, it has to be, really normal. Your normal state is normal, regular, mood-wise. And you do need to have non-mood symptoms, like disturbance, racing thoughts, flight of ideas, pressure speech, energy, grandiosity, impulsivity, hyperreligiosity, hypersexuality, and increased risk-taking, and all these other kind of really not so good things. So, And that's, I guess, I'm going to open to questions. Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, a case study, I saw a lot of the patients started on SSRIs. And
Yeah.
like just sort of the antithesis of the reaction.
Yeah. So
Is that a good, is that one sort of indicator for someone who's working?
no, because that's, okay. So if they start getting like very manic-y or irritable, an SSRI, I would take it off and see what happens. If it continues, like, and this is, they're not really that way. It continues afterwards, after you start the SSRI, and depending on what SSRI you're using, but like Prozac, it will be a few weeks, and then like Zoloft would be like a week, But if it continues after that, then maybe something's going on. Kind of look into it. So bipolar 1, a lot of times you have a manic episode, and all you one in a lifetime, where you are really hospitable. I mean, that's generally the way I see it. Because because you could be manic, but not to the extent that it is impairing your functioning, right? Related and feel good and have lots of energy, and you're not really being a danger to yourself, not being, dangerous to other people. You're driving maybe a little faster. What's under the radar? The bipolar disorder would be that mania where you are really at risk of harming not just yourself but everyone around you.
Between 1 and 2.
Yeah, would be the level of mania. Oh, sorry. Bipolar 1, you're higher, lower mania. A lot more of the features. Yeah, with 1. And so 2 would be like less. Yeah, so mania, this is like bipolar 1, would be this one. Bipolar 2, that one. And it's mixed mania right here.
Does that happen with both?
Now, usually mixed mania is with bipolar 1, but you could be hypomanic with bipolar 1 too. Yeah, a lot of times that's how they kind of go around. Right. Now,
This presence of psychosis automatically makes it mania. So usually we say for diagnosis is that any manic episode makes you bipolar 1. So then you're signing yourself up sort of for bipolar 1 treatment, level treatment, and sort of intensity of the mood stabilizers we use for bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. You can obviously use the same mood stabilizers for them, but we tend to use Lumental for bipolar 2. Lumental does not keep the lid on manic episodes. So Lumental is decent pretty good for depression. It's decent for hypomania, but it definitely does not keep the lid on mania. So if you have someone with clear manic episodes who's trying to talk you into Lumental when they really need to be on lithium, it's one of those you have to have a hard talk about this and keep the lid on. And in some circumstances, there's some anecdotal evidence that it can sometimes make manic episodes psychotic manic episodes with Lumental. So,
but I think that's hopefully you guys won't be doing much of that.
Is there any overlap? I mean, it sounds like, in psychotic episodes that are maybe manic episodes or like schizophrenia, is that a difficult differentiation for?
on the inpatient unit, yes. So on the inpatient unit, you have history. So if you have history that they've been not sleeping, so you're catching them at a point in time. So if you have history, not been sleeping, sort of up all night, work time in school, more sex, you're thinking manic episode psychosis. You have 6 months of progressive depression and sort of more social withdrawal and sort of the kind of prodromal symptoms, and you're seeing them as acute are definitely kids who we could clarify. And so we sort of said, fingers crossed it's bipolar, because the long-term outcome is better, but it might be.
And they're higher inside?
Schizophrenia? No, geez, they're about the same. Yeah.
There's fairly significant
Yeah.
rates of suicide.
Yeah. But, psychotic episodes with, just depression too. So that's kind of too, because prodromal symptoms for schizophrenia or even bipolar, sometimes you get depression. I mean, you get a lot. And so.
And to suggest that for bipolar 1 disorder, for every manic day, there's 3 depressive days. The data would suggest bipolar 2, for every hypomanic days, there's 30 depressive days. So if you think about when you see patients in time, bipolar 2 patients, you're much more likely to see them as depressed, because they really struggle, I think, getting diagnosed at an appropriate time frame. So much of the time, they're until they can elaborate clearly for somebody that they've had a hypomanic episode, you're still sort of treating. Odds are, if someone comes to you depressed, statistically speaking, with their major depressive disorder than bipolar disorder.
Yeah. And that lends to the whole misdiagnosis piece. But you do the best you can. I think that's the biggest thing. So, there are, but this one seems to be I think it's the best one, but there's a whole bunch. But certainly for an outpatient kind of setting, I think this is a good one. Long ones that are a little too bulky. The specificity is really good. I mean, that's really good for things. Let's see. Any questions? Yeah. And so for postpartum, psychosis, there's a really high association. I don't know if it's pathognomonic for bipolar, but there's bipolar. You got to ask about bipolar history and women, postpartum, if you have a bipolar kind of family history, kind of just look out for postpartum psychosis. Yeah, because that's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's scary. So because you have to, when you're treating them through the pregnancy, so there's all of the machinations of what you change with the medication through the pregnancy. Obviously, try not to be on lithium in the first trimester, but lithium in the second and third trimester. And you have to adjust the lithium right before delivery because of all the shift. And then really the hard part is decisioning about and then sleep, because to be most women with bipolar disorder are thrown off by sleep changes. And I had a young lady who traveled for work and traveled internationally for work, and we talked about getting a new job because that was what the time change and the sleep changes would travel for work with her. So, and as you can imagine, in the morning waking you up 3 hours, so you have to have a lot of conversations about what are the plans for childcare so that you can get a solid 6 hours. And so, yeah, they make us worry. We want to make sure it's a supportive partner.
Or family.
Yeah. Yeah, because they have
Okay.
I used to